My mother was a transmigrator. She taught me about equality, that women hold up half the sky, and encouraged me to study. But when I finally picked up the books and discussed state affairs with a grand tutor, my royal brothers stopped treating me as kindly as before. In the middle of a bitter winter, they pushed me into the frozen lake. It was Wei Lingxiao who dived in to save me. Princess, please stay strong. I am here. Don't be afraid. He was the only one in the academy who didn't fear the princes. And the only other girl besides me. The one who just inherited the title of Marquis General Wei Lingxiao. I huddled obediently against his shoulder. But as soon as I let out a tiny sob, he sternly cut me off. Princess, listen to me. Stop crying and hold on. You must remember this. In the future, weakness has no place in my presence. I was so startled that I snapped out of it, not even daring to let a tear or sniffle escape. Once we reached my mother's palace, I struggled to break free from him immediately. His embrace was far too intimidating. I threw myself into my mother's arms. I didn't dare cry in front of Wei Lingxiao. I waited until he finished reporting the incident to my mother. And only after he left did I finally burst into tears. My mother held me tight, just like when I was little, patting my back gently while comforting me. Those jerks. Absolute bastards. So I was already used to my mother's strange way of talking. I knew she was cursing the brothers who bullied me. So I nodded vigorously, thinking my mother's words were absolutely right. But why? Are you still so afraid? My dear, I froze, feeling deeply conflicted. I have always loved studying and literature, but at the same time, I am terrified of everything. While I was hesitating, a clear melodic voice drifted in from the window. That woman stepped through the doors. Even the magnificent palace couldn't outshine her commanding aura. She knelt to bow and made a promise that stayed with me for a lifetime. This subject is willing to protect Princess Jing'an, so she will never be bullied again. She looked at me, the brilliant light in her eyes shining brightly. I didn't know what she saw in me at that moment. But her words gave me immense courage. I heard her ask, "Does the princess still dare to attend school tomorrow?" I wiped my tears, trying to keep a straight face, and answered in a sobbing voice, "Then tomorrow I will. Wait at the north gate for Lord Wei to go to the academy together. Unstoppable by wind or snow." That was Wei Lingxiao's first time smiling at me. Unstoppable by the weather. She is only 16 this year, yet already a commanding marshal. In last year's Eastern campaign, she traded her right eye for illustrious military merits. That's why during our first meeting at the academy, I was deeply in awe of this female marquis, wearing an eye patch. But the next day, as I waited at the north gate amidst flying snowflakes, Wei Lingxiao never showed up. She sent her guards with a message, saying my imperial father urgently summoned her last night to lead troops out of the city. I couldn't help but frown. How cold must that be? I don't even dare to walk in the dark, yet she can march through the night. The guard asked if I had any words for her, and after a long pause I said, "May the wind and snow not slow her down. May swords and spears never harm her and return safely. And please pass on one more message. When she returns, we will go to the academy together. The other princesses of marriageable age are all busy choosing noble husbands, like regular princesses. Yet she is the only one who is completely different. She is not like those men, or those merely decorative, noble lords. She respects me. In her eyes, I am someone of value. Not just like those royal brothers." My mate shook her head. Looking somewhat worried, she helped me out of the palanquin, heading into the academy. She couldn't help but remind me, Princess. Don't clash too fiercely with the princess. Otherwise, you are the one who suffers. It is true. Always the one who suffers. I couldn't help but repeat her words. We are blood siblings, all children of the emperor. Yet the ones who suffer are always the daughters. I prepared myself to play dumb and act obedient. But unexpectedly, the moment I stepped into brothers warmly escorted me to my seat. I was entirely bewildered. The one who can never hide his thoughts. Fourth brother half squatted in front of me, smiling apologetically. My good sister, since you are close to Marquis Wei. Why? Didn't you tell us? Yesterday was just a joke between siblings, yet it alarmed her enough to complain to the emperor. It really was a misunderstanding. I blinked, thinking to myself, so there is actually something you fear. So the five of you scheming for the throne. Still no, there is a first-rank female marquis, holding heavy military power. Whoever she supports will have the greatest chance of winning. But on the surface, I still had to play the good girl. Yesterday, after returning to the palace, I caught a cold and fell ill. I paused for a moment and deliberately changed how I addressed her. My sister went to complain to our imperial father because she has always been resolute and cannot tolerate any injustice. Therefore, I hope you, dear brothers, can be forgiving. Several brothers spoke polite words, only the crown prince's face remained gloomy. He said something inexplicable to me. Regarding Wei Lingxiu, you had better watch out. A little. It wasn't until I returned to the palace and heard my mother's explanation that I understood. For this campaign, Wei Lingxiu specifically named the crown princess's younger brother to accompany her. He is a weak and cowardly playboy, the legitimate son of the family, completely spoiled. The battlefield is incredibly dangerous. Who knows if he can make it back alive? I softly asked my mother, did Lord Wei do this for me? To avenge me? But you to haven't even... She has only met you what? Besides, how can she in front of everyone act completely indifferent and directly reject a marriage proposal? I felt a faint hint of disappointment, but my mother's words made sense, so I could only nod. Oh, from the very beginning it was unclear. We clearly had no real connection. But I still began paying attention to news regarding the war. When the princes were at the academy, they loved most to discuss court matters with the tutor. It was then I learned that during the coldest days of late winter and early spring, Wei Lingxiu went to the harsh and bitterly cold region of Mobe. I heard that even before actual combat began, many soldiers had already died from the severe cold. Recalling the feeling of falling into the frozen lake that day, I couldn't help but shiver. How cold must that be? I couldn't resist interrupting them. Brother, you just said Sister Z went to suppress a rebellion. Who exactly are the rebels? Are they Sister Zhao's match? Second brother advised me. Why are you? I hadn't thought about that. I am just worried about Sister Zhao's safety. Third brother responded quite openly, with a disdainful attitude. Second brother, you still don't understand the hearts of these women. Let's say we went to our deaths. They would also just wait tearfully for their men to return. Let me tell you, don't worry blindly. A few grasshopper bandits can't trouble her, according to us. Sending her to kill chickens with a butcher knife is imperial father's command. I see. I pretended to be clueless and nodded along. But I understood what third brother meant. Mobe is thousands of miles away. If it were just to pacify some bandits, using Wei Lingxiu would be a waste of her talent. There must be some other order. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made her march overnight, not even letting her return for the new year. Thinking that the Marquis of Zhenguo only had this one daughter, My mother and I agreed to prepare some gifts to comfort them. Originally, I wanted to meet the old Marquis and his wife in person. But when I asked my imperial father for permission to leave the palace, he did not allow it, and even reprimanded me slightly, saying that since I am a girl who has studied, how could I go out and show my face in public? I returned dejected and sighed in front of my mother. The crown prince, at 5 years old, could already follow his master to travel the great mountains and rivers. But now that I have reached the age of adulthood, I can only be trapped here. I looked at my mother. She was staring blankly at the flickering candlelight. Number. Even after I get married in the future, I will still only be trapped in a square courtyard. Then when will I be able to walk freely on the streets? Do I have to be like Sister Z, covered in military merits? My mother has always had an unconventional personality. Her worries never last overnight. Even my imperial father said directly, what he likes most is exactly my mother's free-spirited nature. But at this moment, she no longer had that cynical expression. Logically speaking, women shouldn't have to risk their lives for military merits just to earn the right to live freely. But in this world, it is so difficult. Confusion and sorrow filled the corners of her eyes. She gently pulled me into her arms. I wanted you to study, because I didn't want you to be ignorant all your life, merely an accessory to men. But now that you have read more and started to understand the world, I am afraid that in the end you still won't be able to resist the torrents of society and be unable to do what you truly want. I rested my head on my mother's shoulder, looking at the wind and snow outside the window, thinking deeply for a long time. Most things in this world do not go as one wishes. I only wish that amidst all these disappointments, at least I can experience them wide awake. My mother's body visibly stiffened as she repeated my words. Wide awake. She reached out and rubbed my hair. I thought it would be like those cliché tropes. We're getting a man's. Love means I could complete the mission and return home. But now I am trapped here. It seems that's not the case. I looked entirely confused and asked my mother what she was talking about. My mother shook her head with a bit of desolation. It was me being naive. Just do what you want to do. Mother will pave the way for you. Holding on to my mother. This was the first time I wanted to stand in front of her, to protect her instead. Mother, you have already done many out-of-line things. Qijin said something. That is right. You have no intention to harm others. But with so many eyes watching in the harem, our yielding is exactly what they want. Instead, we should. My mother smiled appreciatively and personally poured me a cup of tea. And fight back. I love it most when she says this. In private, my mother loves to tell me stories. She said there is a book called The Legend of Xinhuan that is very interesting. As I gradually understood how the world works whenever we face trouble, my mother would leisurely say, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Now, we both laughed. I asked Qijin to bring the almanac under the warm yellow palace lights. I pointed out the autumn harvest days to my mother. Then don't blame Jing'an for her future actions. My royal brothers can leave the palace whenever they want, but I cannot. I cannot leave openly. I can only use crying at the Haguo temple outside the city as an excuse, under my mother's cover. Taking the chance to leave the palace to do what I want. Haguo temple gives out alms and porridge every month. At first I stayed inside the temple, serving porridge together with the young monks. Later I used the crowded courtyard as an excuse to move outside the temple to give out alms. My real goal was to walk to the fields. The first time I saw wheat seedlings, I naively broke one off and stuffed it into my mouth. Auntie Lee, who was farming, laughed out loud, hurriedly taking it out of my mouth. Princess Jing'an. This wheat needs to go through several processes before it becomes food. Chewing it raw like this will definitely not be what the princess usually tastes in the palace on the 1st and the 15th, leaving the city to pray. Finally, in the year I turned 15 and had my coming of age ceremony, I saw the green wheat seedlings with my own eyes to see how they are harvested by farmers with sickles, ground into flour, and finally made into edible food. I got along well with Auntie Lee. Her 2 sons happened to follow Wei Lingxiao to the battlefield, leaving the old lady alone with her young grandson. I truly couldn't bear it, so I changed into casual clothes and went to help her grind flour whenever I had time. Auntie Lee was terrified, afraid of harming my precious royal body. I helped her up. The soldiers fight on the front lines so the people can live in peace. Yet those living in deep courtyards with high walls, the royal family, can throw away for one meal a whole cart of food. Under the scorching sun, my arms were sunburned purplish red. Sweat dripping into the soil. I muttered this poem to myself. This poem. We memorized it fluently at 4 or 5 years old, but only to show off in front of our imperial father and compete over who recited it better. Never once did we truly understand that every single grain is the result of hard work. Late at night, a heavy storm hit. I thought of Auntie Lee's wheat stacks and couldn't sit still. I changed into casual clothes. My mother was worried and assigned a guard to follow me. The guard was named Ling Yan. Not only did his name, but his eyes also looked very much like Wei Lingxiao's. I forced myself to stop thinking about her, but with each letter sent out, and all my wild thoughts, missing her made me understand my own heart. Ling Yan held an umbrella for me. I didn't want to look into his eyes, so I turned my head and said, "Watch the road carefully. When we get to Auntie Lee's place later, you go and watch over her grandson. In such heavy rain, her house's roof is definitely leaking. Then, we must help secure the wheat." But when we hurried there, we were still a step too late. Auntie Lee had just hitched the donkey. She was driving a cart, taking her grandson to see the doctor. The moment she saw me, the usually rock-solid woman burst into bitter tears. She knelt before me, her eyes full of despair. I hurriedly pulled her up. "Auntie Lee, what's wrong?" "My grandson has a high fever." I couldn't delay. I immediately snatched the umbrella from Ling Yan's hand, jumped onto the cart to shield the child from the rain. "The muddy road is hard to travel. Pushing the cart is too exhausting for you. Let's go to Haguo Temple. We will wait at the back door. You go find the imperial physician my mother arranged at the temple, and then send someone to let us in. Princess, your noble status should not be risked. This child is but a commoner. If I ignore the lives of my people today, then my monthly visits to Buddha for prayers, wouldn't they all be empty words?" Ling Yan froze on the spot. I grabbed his wrist. Amidst a clap of thunder, I saw these guards, who were usually respectful yet cold, finally show a different expression. "Ling Yan, I don't want them to die." His expression shifted from confusion to determination. He finally helped us push the cart all the way back to Haguo Temple. After rushing desperately, when a ray of golden morning light shone into the hall, Auntie Lee's grandson's life was saved. Even the usually detached old abbot was deeply moved. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. And returned at dawn, already completely exhausted. I leaned on the shoulder of Auntie Lee, who was weeping tears of joy. Auntie, I used to believe everything was destined, but I am more willing to give it my all before accepting destiny. And now, the road ahead is long and difficult, but I have just entered the stage. That month, my arms and cheeks were sunburned, and my imperial father found out about my secret excursions. He punished me to reflect on my mistakes behind closed doors and copy a thick stack of the admonitions for women. For some reason, copying the admonitions for women this time, especially when my mother angrily said, I used to read them, but because I was living comfortably in the palace, I didn't fully comprehend them. Now, after going through the storm, I suddenly gained a different perspective. My mother couldn't stand seeing me punished, so she helped me copy them. And as she copied, she scolded. Jingyan, do you know what the difference is between a woman and a dog? Under Neo-Confucian teachings, I always had a bad premonition whenever my mother spoke so boldly. My mother was clearly well-read, but her curses were surprisingly vulgar. Sometimes I tried to advise her to speak more elegantly, but she didn't care. As a modern college student, my manners may be unknown, but my temper is strong. Facing this bunch of green teas and scumbags, am I just want to spit? Now that I was used to it, I could only silently stroke her cheek, gesturing for her to lower her voice. I know the difference. Women can understand human language. Exactly. Thinking back on everything about my mother, when I was still very young, I didn't completely understand her. For example, while other concubines were thinking of how to dress up to attract my imperial father, she would stay in her palace studying the 4 books and 5 classics. And she was exceptionally good at mathematics. Even my imperial father often came to ask for her advice. Another example is when she was most favored. The empress often came to make things difficult for her. But my mother voluntarily requested birth control medicine, scoffing at the princes that others dreamed of having. If raised well, a daughter can also take care of me. If raised poorly, having a son is just a waste of effort. This kind of unconventional behavior deeply fascinated my imperial father, making all the concubines in the 6 palaces envious. Yet my mother said to me, men love the thrill of the chase. They cannot resist their innate instinct. The more you ignore them, the more they desire you. Because human nature is inherently greedy. What they cannot get is always the most desired. By remaining aloof and unbothered, one can naturally dispel their ill intentions. But the root cause is not that she is afraid. Rather, it is because she simply doesn't care. She is not afraid of a bad end just because she didn't bear a prince. She firmly believes that what the royal brothers can do, I can do too. So I love my mother from the bottom of my heart, just as I admire Wei Lingxiu, because they share the same unyielding spirit. Watching my mother's expression of utter disgust at the current situation, I reached out and stroked every word of the admonitions for women. Finally, I slowly said to my mother, since I want to get what the royal brothers can get, then naturally that also includes the throne. I didn't need to look at my mother's face. I knew she had been waiting for me to say this. And that month, besides saving Auntie Lee's little boy, there was another joyous event. I finally received the urgent 800-mile dispatch from Mobei, reporting Wei Lingxiu's great victory and the news of her imminent return. Upon inquiring, I found out that she actually crossed the border and captured 7 cities of the Zumu Kingdom. Hearing this news, I was just thankful she was still alive. So on the day Wei Lingxiu returned to the capital to report, I sent someone to invite her to the harem. In the middle of winter, I waited for her in the pavilion, on the pure white palace path, a dark green silhouette resembling a pine tree, still wearing her silver armor. Like a red sun over the vast desert river, Wei Lingxiu strode up to the pavilion. Having not seen her for a year, she had lost a lot of weight, yet her single eye remained as clear as ever. carrying a chilling aura that made people hesitate to approach. Jing'an. She bowed to me, looking down from above. I noticed a dark scar on the back of her neck, as thick as a thumb, extending into her collar. Who knows how long that blade wound was? My heart instantly felt as if it was fiercely twisted in pain. I had so many things I wanted to say to her. I wanted to ask her what kind of dangers she had encountered. I wanted to ask her if capturing those cities was a wise move. And I also wanted to tell her about my recent life. I wanted to tell her I learned how to harvest wheat grind flour and saved a child. I wanted to tell her that out of sympathy for the people, one drafted a book on agriculture and received my imperial father's praise and rewards. I had so much to say, but seeing her scars, all that remained were silent tears. I hate myself, standing here, only knowing how to cry. I am completely powerless. The more I want to look decent in front of her, the more flustered I become. Trembling, I stood in the cold wind. Unexpectedly, a strong embrace suddenly wrapped around me. She has grown a lot taller. Last year, my eyes were still level with hers, but this year, I only reach her chin. I put down my hands and raised my head, when my forehead unexpectedly brushed against her warm lips like a sudden clap of thunder. I froze on the spot, my face burning even hotter than standing in the midday wheat field. She leaned in, whispering by my ear. Though this subject was at the border, my heart was always concerned. I heard the princess contributed to agriculture, and I heard the princess not only saved those around her, but also helped the border thousands of miles away. So she knew. So she had been paying attention to me too. This was Wei Lingsha's first time speaking so gently to me. I promised to protect the princess. Yet I let the princess endure a year of hardships alone. It is my failure to protect you. I should be properly punished. She pulled back to a polite distance, her single eye curving into a beautiful crescent moon. I still didn't dare to look directly at her, turning my head away. I never said, "It was your fault." I just wanted to see you and talk to you. While eagerly preparing a few home-cooked dishes, she couldn't help but smile. If this subject were a man, returning from battle to have the princess personally cook and make soup for me. With an unspeakable thought, I asked her, what if you were not a man? Then, the snow outside the window grew heavier. The room was dead silent for a long time. She didn't answer me for a long time, until I finally couldn't help but look up, carefully observing her expression. This was the first time she averted her gaze, not daring to look. The hand she placed by the table clenched into a fist. Princess, even the crown prince fears me. I naturally cannot love you. You must. Wei Lingsha couldn't help but cough twice. And then, her ears turned completely red. I didn't know what she was thinking. I only knew the usually calm female marquis was flustered, even accidentally knocking over the wine cup on the table, spilling it everywhere. She didn't answer me until the very end. My heart turned completely cold walking her out of the palace. I always stayed half a step behind her, looking at her tall back. I really didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say it was a joke, nor did I want to pretend. I never mentioned it. What my mother taught me has always been to be clear about love and hate, and have a clear conscience. So when we reached the North Gate, I couldn't hide my disappointment. Last year, before Lord Wei went to war, I waited here for 2 hours. I wasn't afraid of my hands and feet freezing. I was only afraid that I would never see you again. My heart is clear and true, and it will not change in the future. I only hope you won't be troubled by Jing'an. I only pray for your long life and good health. For the sake of a bit of pride, I gritted my teeth and continued. Heartbreak is natural, but Jing'an is not that kind of person. I can read a few more. Agricultural books. Go to the countryside and fields more often. To take a walk. It was hard to get my imperial father's permission to leave the palace. This year, no matter what, I must start from planting the seeds and follow through. I threw out this long speech, trying to use these firm words to hide a panicked heart. She suddenly reached out and grabbed my trembling hand. Her strength was too great. With a gentle pull, she pulled me in front of her, so close I couldn't pull my hand away. Looking at her, I heard her ask, "Do you still have? Didn't you already?" She asked so suddenly. My face was full of confusion. Wei Lingxiao leaned closer to me. What about the next sentence? Could the princess call me that to my face? So this subject can hear it. Sister Z. Now it was my turn to blush. I was at a loss for words. I was so stunned that day I turned around and fled. Several little maids chased after me with umbrellas, but they couldn't catch up to me. I ran far away and hid behind a carved dragon pillar. Only then did I pant heavily, trying to calm my racing heart and process that sentence. Sister Z, she actually heard it. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made an appointment with me. Will Princess Jing'an come and wait for Sister Z once more? I muttered softly to myself, while sprinting back to my palace to have my mother help me pick a beautiful outfit. Jing'an truly has someone on her mind. It cannot be hidden from your eyes and brows. Oh well, I blushed deeply. I neither nodded nor shook my head. My feelings are too unspeakable. This forbidden path cannot be seen by others, cannot see the light of day, but I believe. One day I will say it openly and honorably. Fearing history would repeat itself the next day heading north, on the way to the North Gate. My heart was constantly anxious. I said to Kijin that leading troops to war is a major affair. If she truly is once again abruptly ordered to march overnight, it is completely understandable. Right. Kijin saw right through my anxiety, helplessly smiled and shook her head. The princess is sitting in the palanquin, so naturally you cannot see. The one waiting there wearing a bright red fur cloak, presumably, can only be the Marquis of Zhengguo who arrived early. Hearing this, I lifted my skirt and hurriedly jumped down. I bypassed the crowd and ran with all my might towards that touch of crimson. From afar, Wei Lingxiao saw me and also ran towards me. The sky that had been gloomy for days suddenly shed a ray of sunlight. Wei Lingxiao caught the panting me in her arms. The princess's hands are freezing. Didn't we agree that you would be safe and sound? I took the opportunity to slip my hands under her cloak and wrap them around her waist. The palanquin was too slow. I was afraid I would miss you. So I ran over myself to see if it was Sister Z. Next time I go to war, I will definitely inform the princess early on. I happily held her arm and went to the academy. This time, she sat behind me. I no longer felt like there were thorns on my back. Whenever the Grand Tutor praised my unique insights, I couldn't help but look back at her, almost writing praise me on my face. She naturally played along, echoing in agreement and clapping continuously. In the end, I was the one who felt embarrassed first. Usually, when the Grand Tutor read the articles I wrote, my royal brothers would definitely mock every single word sarcastically, but today with Wei Lingxiao here, seeing how close we were, they didn't dare to make a sound, relying on her power. I walked up to the fourth brother who had the sharpest tongue and asked him, "Fourth brother, you always love to find fault. Why haven't you said a single word today and not teach your royal sister?" Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Wei Lingxiao lazily resting her head on one hand at the back desk, watching me leisurely. Fourth brother wished he could bury his head in his book. How could he find fault? He glanced to the side. It is evident that royal sister's writing has greatly improved. This is a good thing. Royal sister should be happy. I am also happy for you. Why do I feel That fourth brother is still remembering how I was pushed into the water last year. Fourth brother glanced at Wei Lingxiao behind me and seeing something instantly turned pale with fright. You, today, at the academy, why didn't the crown princesses rather come? Ever since he returned from the campaign, he caught a severe high fever. Rumor has it he fell into Mobi's freezing river. I turned to look at Wei Lingxiao in astonishment. That arrogant female. Marquis was still resting her head on one hand. Second young master, presumably, is too used to a pampered life at home and wasn't used to marching in the ice and snow. His legs went soft, so he accidentally fell into the ice hole. Fourth brother truly cares, meeting Wei Lingxiao's eyes that hid a wicked smile I couldn't hold back. A secret laugh. Every word she said claimed it had nothing to do with me, but the way she looked at me. Her eyes clearly said, "That's right, it was all my doing." What? Who told you to push the princess into the frozen lake first? Third brother stood up to speak for the crown prince, saying that if Lord Wei takes a husband one day, shouldn't she let him suffer some unprovoked disasters too? How about next time I go to war, I ask the emperor to let the Third Highness accompany me, so your highness can experience what true exhaustion is. Third brother sat back down dejectedly. Exactly how he stood up, the crown prince's face grew even darker. He finally asserted his authority as the crown prince towards me. After school, come with me to the Eastern Palace. I have something to say. I obediently agreed, but was pulled over by Wei Lingxiao. Do you need me to? I quickly covered her mouth, only to see her arms resting beside me. Her eyes full of laughter. Wei Lingxiao is truly teasing me. She is so bad. I listened to Wei Lingxiao and left Ling Yun outside the palace gate. I knew Ling Yun was Wei Lingxiao's man from the day she marched overnight to war. She had always been thinking of me, but in the end I overestimated the crown prince. I thought the important matter he wanted to discuss was forbidding me from studying practicing martial arts and leaving the palace to observe the people's lives, but he just brought out the crown princess, putting on the act of a caring elder brother, flipping through a portrait book and slightly recommending a royal husband. I couldn't help but think of my mother's words. They think that for a woman, marrying well and having lots of children is considered a perfect life. That's why they use an excellent husband to lure me, making me retreat to the position they believe I should be in. But I also want to study literature and martial arts for power and profit. I also want to be a noble official and leave a legacy through the ages. Crown Prince brother. Royal sister is in no hurry to marry. I raised my head, looking around the beautifully carved and painted beams. Royal sister wants to stand tall, to have many men, just like the royal brothers, who don't settle down before establishing their careers. Look at how royal brother got married, then took concubine. Like, it's an endless cycle. Fourth, I didn't expect him to actually dare to lay a hand on me. Behind the extremely remote cold palace, there is an even more desolate thatched house, where the hostage from the enemy country is imprisoned. The crown prince's trusted men tied me up and threw me inside. They put a knife to the hostage's neck, forcing him to defile me. I felt utterly cold. With my mouth gagged, I couldn't call for help. The hostage begged bitterly, but to survive, he still reached out with trembling hands to tear my clothes. The moment he touched me, my stomach churned. In pain, I kicked my feet wildly, but couldn't break free. Looking up, I could only see a sliver of light through the attic skylight and the dark, gloomy clouds. My heart sank to the bottom. Crown Prince brother, no matter what, I am your sister. At the moment of despair, an earth-shattering roar came from outside, followed by the attic door being kicked open. The daylight poured in, illuminating the dark room. By the time I realized what happened, several of the crown prince's men in the room had their throats slit. The smell of blood made me nauseous. Just as she raised her blade to kill the hostage, I desperately threw myself forward and plunged into a silver, armored embrace. Her movements were very like carefully untying my ropes. I wiped my tears. But seeing the heartache in Wei Lingxiu's eyes, I couldn't control myself and burst into tears. She looked at me with her only eye shedding tears, her expression dark. Heartache overriding fear, I shook my head vigorously and instead comforted her. The one who should die is definitely not him, and you absolutely cannot kill this hostage now. Otherwise, before Imperial Father, if they frame you, we wouldn't even be able to explain ourselves. Wei Lingxiu raised her hand. This hand that swings a 100-pound meteor hammer. When wiping away my tears, was as gentle as cotton falling on my cheek. I couldn't help but smile through my tears. Sister Z, the killing intent in her eyes finally softened a bit. She picked me up and took me back to my mother's palace, first intending to go alone to complain to the emperor. But I still held on to her, asking her to wait for me to change clothes and go together. Because we are both women, my mother didn't order Wei Lingxiu to avoid looking when my clothes were removed. Noticing Wei Lingxiu's heavy gaze, I couldn't help but blush. Like a young blushing maiden. What about Sister Z? Covered in blade and sword scars. Then, I had my back turned to Wei Lingxiu, but my mother was facing me. She saw my expression clearly, her subtle gaze shifting back and forth between me and Wei Lingxiu. As if discovering some shocking secret, Wei Lingxiu didn't answer me. I brought the topic back to the crown prince. The new year is approaching. This bastard absolutely cannot be kept to disgust us in the new year. Wei Lingxiu said, seeing her murderous expression. I didn't feel afraid at all. Sister Z, they want to see us fall into the abyss, want to see us ruined and disgraced. Then we absolutely will not let them. Let's go straight to see Imperial Father. Wei Lingxiu was moved. She took 2 steps forward and held my hand. My mother's shoulders jerked up as she covered her mouth, staring wide-eyed at Wei Lingxiu and my clasped hands. Oh my god, I ship it so hard. You two are the female general and the little princess. My face flushed completely red, not daring to look back at Wei Lingxiu. Wei Lingxiu naturally couldn't understand what my mother was saying. Concubine Han, are you hurt somewhere? Number. She quickly helped me tie my cloak and stuffed my hand into Wei Lingxiu's palm. Like marrying off a daughter, she entrusted Wei Lingxiu. Please don't let her suffer. Looking at my mother's unbridled smile, I hurriedly pulled Wei Lingxiu outside. Wei Lingxiu was quite straightforward and loudly promised to bring me back perfectly intact. After such a playful fuss, I actually calmed down. Arriving before Imperial Father, I bowed gracefully and met the Crown Prince's vicious gaze without fear. Crown Prince, even if today I was defiled by the hostage, I will still go to the academy, still study, still go to Haguo Temple to pray for the people. My heart is clean, and my future is vast. I will absolutely not let other people's malice break my spirit. So Your Highness the Crown Prince, resorting to such a foolish move, didn't destroy me, but instead made me more clear-headed. Imperial father intended to shield the crown prince, going along with the crown prince's sophistry. He claimed it was because I accidentally trespassed into the forbidden area and was speaking nonsense out of fear. Because I already have prestige among the people, Imperial father didn't let the hostage succeed. But I felt it show. Because I already saw clearly. The one who truly deserved to be severely punished was standing right there in the hall, completely unharmed. Hearing this, what His Highness the Crown Prince said is not true. Princess Jing'an was saved by the subject passing by. The hostage has been killed by the subject. I noticed the Crown Prince looking at Wei Lingxiao behind me. His expression unbelievably dark. I thought, before Wei Lingxiao spoke, anyone would have been quite confident. After all, the Crown Prince is the heir apparent. The future emperor, even a first-rank marquis, wouldn't need to fall out with the Crown Prince over a mere princess. So Wei Lingxiao's counterattack made the Crown Prince furious. An ignorant woman. I clearly heard the sound of Wei Lingxiao's knuckles cracking. She was truly enraged. The year before last, when quelling the rebellion in the south, I had two ribs broken. Why? Didn't Your Highness call me an ignorant woman? Last year when Jiangdong was invaded, I sacrificed an eye to kill hundreds of enemies. She took the gold medal granted by Imperial Father off her body, kneeling and bowing before him. Since His Highness the Crown Prince actually considers this subject an ignorant woman, she was behind me. According to etiquette, I shouldn't stand up without Imperial Father's permission. But hearing the heavy thud of her forehead hitting the ground, I really couldn't resist turning around. But as soon as I turned my head, I froze. I saw her left eye hidden beneath the eye patch. Dark red veins looking like roots. It was truly shocking. My eyes couldn't help but redden. But Wei Lingxiao just gave me a calm and breezy look to reassure me. Imperial Father actually stepped forward before me, standing in front of Wei Lingxiao. Our dynasty favors martial arts, so he naturally valued this young general who seemed like the god of war descended to earth. What nonsense! Imperial Father tried to smooth things over, wanting to help Wei Lingxiao up, but seeing she stubbornly refused. Imperial Father understood in his heart. He made the Crown Prince formally apologize to her, hoping a few words would settle the matter. Wei Lingxiao naturally refused. I squeezed out large tears and sobbed. Imperial Father, are you also treating me like an ignorant woman? Is it that easy? Is the world now treating a princess's life so cheaply? I stood up and was about to smash my head against the pillar. Imperial Father hurriedly stopped me. This is not the harem nor the imperial study, but the grand hall of the royal court. Because the ones directly involved in this matter are not just me, a princess deeply loved by the people, but also Wei Lingxiao, a first-rank marquis holding great power in the court, waiting for a result and an explanation. Seeing that Wei Lingxiao and I would not let this go, Imperial Father gradually understood that he had to weigh the situation, his expression changing from dismissive to serious. Do you truly seek to use your power to threaten the Crown Prince? He asked this, but I knew that facing the Emperor's wrath, Wei Lingxiao would understand my uncompromising stance. I am the first princess since the founding emperor to leave the palace to serve the people. And Wei Lingxiao is the first female general in this dynasty to command an army of millions. We have already reached the highest point for women. If even so we cannot protect ourselves, then in the future how can we convince the people of the world to believe that women in power can also bring peace and prosperity? So I firmly nodded. Jing'an demands. Seeing my tough attitude, Imperial father coughed a few times, his body swaying, actually looking a bit unsteady. I remember last year. When I saw him, he was still very vigorous for some reason. Looking closely now, he actually has a lot of white hair. But in the end, he still didn't give me fairness. He only ordered the crown prince to return to the Eastern Palace, to reflect on his mistakes behind closed doors, forbidden from stepping out of his palace for 3 months. Although I don't think being defiled would ruin my life from the crown prince's perspective. He wanted nothing less than my complete ruin and eternal damnation, yet he only received such a painless punishment. What's truly ridiculous is that everyone thought, for the sake of a princess, making the crown prince stay behind closed doors for 3 months was already giving me enough face. So I wasn't happy at all during that New Year. Amidst the brilliant fireworks, I nestled against my mother's shoulder and let out a long sigh. She gently patted my shoulder and slowly said a sentence. The weather. I didn't understand and asked her what she meant. She just gently stroked my hair by my temples. Your imperial father won't live long. It's time to change the dynasty. I suddenly thought of the legend of Xinhuan that she loved telling me most. I remember the ending of that story. The ending of the concubine was that the emperor's most favored noble consort. Personally, it was bone-chilling. I instinctively tightened my grip on my mother's hand. When I asked her about it, she just gently patted my back to reassure me, instead of striving for an era of peace and prosperity. He insists on expanding the territory, plunging the people into misery and suffering. Such an emperor is completely unworthy of the common people. I froze for a long time, looking at my mother's clear, calm, and beautiful face. I slowly let go of her hand, feeling a deep sense of sadness. After seeing my mother to bed, I stared blankly at the night sky, my mind in utter turmoil. In the quietest moment, a rhythmic sound of horse hooves approached from afar. Wei Lingxiao, wearing a white cloak, stopped by a green pine tree. I ran over and stopped in front of her. Princess, Happy New Year! And good fortune. She took out an oil paper package from her chest and opened it with great enthusiasm, only to reveal a crushed pile of red bean pastry crumbs. Her beautiful brows instantly furrowed. I rode too fast. What a pity. I spent 3 days learning to make it. She was about to throw it away. Quick, let me taste it. I quickly reached out and grabbed a handful before she wrapped the oil paper package. I hastily stuffed it into my mouth. Before I could even swallow, I said, Sister Z, besides being a bit too sweet, this pastry is quite good. When making it, I was thinking, so I accidentally added too much sugar. Princess. I pushed her playfully, taking back my hand in a flurry. Who taught you to say these things? This subject is untalented, having no master. After a bout of teasing and laughter, the gloom in my heart finally dissipated. She helped me fly up to the roof. Afraid I would catch a cold, she took off her red cloak and wrapped it around me. I actually already had an answer in my heart, but I still couldn't help asking her. Is it true that no matter who ascends that throne, they must pave a path of blood? Wei Lingxiao remained silent for a long time. She probably wanted to give me a less cruel answer, but seeing her furrowed brows, I spoke up first. Sister Z, don't worry. I know what kind of path I am walking. I just feel that sibling shedding blood. There is no need for that throne. They treat you as an emperor. If I sit on it now, would it not be better to let me be the ruler? I will do better. This is the current reality. If a son has no merits, he can still inherit the title. But because Wei Lingxiao is a woman, she must train soldiers and buy horses and build a far-reaching reputation. So, she struggles and fights in the military camp time and again, wanting to make a name for herself and using countless narrow escapes from death to prove that even a sole daughter can uphold the title of the Marquis of Donghua. I gently stroked her back, moving up little by little, finally stopping at the scar on her neck. Then I will pave this path of blood for you. Since my father and brothers have no mercy for me, then I no longer have any reason to be soft-hearted. After the new year, Imperial Father's health visibly deteriorated day by day. Yet he was extremely fond of my mother because he believed that among all the powerful people in the harem now, only concubine Han, who had no sons, was the least likely to harm him. People must pay for their blind confidence, especially for things they fundamentally cannot control. Every morning, I went to the academy to listen to the grand tutor. In the afternoon, I left the palace to check on the fields, and at night I hid in Wei Lingxiu's Marquis estate to relax, listening to her talk about court politics, military affairs, local customs across the country, and those remnants of the previous dynasty in Jiangnan. I spent most of my time studying how to build canals and manage floods. When the Crown Prince was released from the Eastern Palace, I happened to be presenting my memorial on building canals to Imperial Father. He stopped me in front of Imperial Father's palace. By now, he wasn't even willing to keep up the last bit of hypocrisy. Royal sister, don't be. Crown Prince brother is mistaken. I've already told you Imperial Father is gravely ill and needs quiet. Yet you still want to. If Imperial Father finds out, wouldn't it chill his heart? Hurry up and return to the Eastern Palace, Crown Prince brother. Lord Lingyun forcibly dragged the Crown Prince away. Seeing the Crown Prince's completely distorted and ferocious face, I suddenly understood what my mother often meant by breaking one's defense. So when I entered Imperial Father's palace and my mother asked me who was causing a commotion outside earlier, I chuckled softly. Someone's defense broke, so I had him sent back. My mother smiled knowingly and helped me hand in the memorial. There will be plenty of times in the future to make them even more. That day, through the bead curtain, I saw Imperial Father no longer had the strength to get up. Looking at the memorial, he nodded weakly, signaling my mother to stamp the state seal for him. The moment my mother held up the state seal, my heart pounded fiercely. If today she can stamp it on a memorial, one day she can stamp it on an imperial edict. The Empress was firmly suppressed by my mother. Seeing the imperial city changing hands, she finally gave the Crown Prince a push. The Crown Prince wanted to rebel and ascend the throne. He wrote a letter to his maternal family holding military power. His Imperial Father is warlike and deeply detested by the people of the world. The only right thing he did was give a good general like Wei Lingxiu a chance to rise. So on the day the Crown Prince gathered the Empress's maternal family to rebel, I sat before Imperial Father's sickbed, wiping his cheeks, and only said to him, "You always say we are ignorant women, but the one who came up with such a foolish move like rebellion and insisted on forcing the throne into my hands is exactly your most favored Crown Prince, Imperial Father. Are you, this time, actually angry at brother for forcing you to abdicate and rebelling? Or angry that I am going to kill my own blood relative?" I slowly stood up and looked out the window. My mother had captured the Empress, waiting for Imperial Father to deal with her. Hearing the person behind me gradually lose his breath, I fiercely wiped away the tears on my face. The throne is Jing'an's. I turned and walked out of the palace, after entrusting my mother with the matter of Imperial Father's passing. I went to the Eastern Palace alone. A light rain began to fall on the way, blurring the path ahead. But I recognized the way to the Eastern Palace. On the day I believed sibling affection wouldn't come to this, it was in the Eastern Palace that Crown Prince brother slapped me, telling me to honestly be a princess from then on. Among the royal husbands he recommended to me, there was even the Crown Princess's younger brother, a spoiled playboy completely useless. Yet the Crown Prince felt such a person was more than enough for me. He was terrified I would have even the slightest chance to rise to the clouds. So even when finding a royal husband for me, he had to find someone mediocre and incompetent. Therefore, I do not plan to leave him a way out. The harem is full of my and my mother's informants. I deliberately opened a gap to let the Empress's letter be sent out, only if he raised troops. To rebel, would I have a legitimate reason to suppress him and eliminate him without leaving any evidence against me? Because only a dead person will not have the right to fight for the throne with me. Wei Lingxiao received my verbal decree and had long set up an ambush in the Eastern Palace. Outside the palace, the forces of the Empress's maternal family had already been dealt with by Ling Yun. I deliberately ordered my imperial guards to pretend to shout loudly outside the Eastern Palace, acting on an imperial decree to purge the emperor's side. The crown prince hesitated to open the door. I walked right up to the palace gates but couldn't hear any movement inside. Wei Lingxiao grew impatient and personally pushed a cannon forward. Ordering her men to shield me behind them, she took aim, and with one shot blasted the main gate of the Eastern Palace to pieces. As the high walls collapsed, it felt as if the cage locking up countless women shattered with it. The crown prince and the people of the Eastern Palace were quickly detained in the courtyard by Wei Lingxiao. Those men who usually thought they were superior. Those who used to look down on and bully me, it turns out they also cry and beg for mercy. The crown prince originally planned to betray his mother and escape, but Wei Lingxiao captured him in the secret tunnel of the Eastern Palace. He raised his head from afar, and this time, he finally stopped using the phrase ignorant woman. I am your brother. I am your brother. Brother. But back then, when I fell into the frozen lake, the one who left me to die was you. Later, the one who pushed me into the enemy hostage's thatched hut and wanted me completely ruined was also you. I blinked, not knowing if what flowed on my face was rain or tears. I coldly ordered the imperial guards who followed the crown prince's rebellion were acting on orders. They must not be executed without cause. The crown princess and her children are to be banished. As for the crown prince, he led troops to rebel and died in the chaos of battle. His remains shall not be buried in the imperial mausoleum. An imperial guard understood my words, drew his sword and stepped forward quickly. Wei Lingxiao rushed in front of me and pressed me into her embrace. Jing'an, don't look. The smell of blood is too strong. Don't be afraid. I fainted in Wei Lingxiao's arms, having a long dream. It felt like a long time when I woke up again. The empire had been pacified. Everything went as we expected. Qijin offered the dragon robe to me. Your Majesty, the court officials are already waiting in the main hall. Let this servant help you dress. Some officials wrote extensively, calling me the first empress in history. Hearing this, I only felt dazed. My original intention of taking the throne was never for these empty titles. I just wanted women to live a sober life, to live fully for themselves, rather than being kicked out by parents-in-law. I wanted women to legitimately inherit titles and thrones just like men, to be held by the virtuous and capable. So after I ascended the throne, I established academies and official posts allowing women to study, write and serve as court officials. I dissolved the harem system. Those who were once trapped by my imperial father in square little courtyard. The concubines can all walk out of the palace gates to see the great rivers and mountains. Wei Lingxiao drank heartily. Since I have no intention of invading other countries' territories, Wei Lingxiao peacefully enjoyed a few comfortable years, which naturally included my efforts. I only let her train more capable generals to guard our own borders and territory. After all, the most urgent task now is for the nation to rest and recover. Let the people have enough to eat first. Ensure the elderly are cared for and the sick are treated. I am willing to be a transitional emperor and let later generations create a golden era. In the previous years, enjoying flowers and the moon, I pulled Wei Lingxiao into my arms, feeling quite guilty for the affairs of the court and the affairs of the world. Sister Z, I'm sorry. I still don't dare to give you an official title. We have a long future ahead. I know Jing'an will definitely figure it out. As always, she respects me and believes in me. She is my good general, and even more the person I hold in my heart. For such deep love from my subject and lord, Jing'an can only repay it with a lifetime It was a Mid-Autumn Festival reunion night. I knew that while Wei Lingxiu and I embraced under the moon. My mother quietly packed her bags and left the palace alone on the day I ascended the throne. She said something to me that I usually couldn't understand. It seems this mission of mine has been accomplished. She held my shoulders and smiled mysteriously at me. Jing'an, you have gained your freedom. Now, let your mother also gain her freedom. When I arrived, I was holding you such a baby, unlocking the painless childbirth achievement right from the start. And you. My daughter turned out so excellent. It's just too awesome, okay? I'll have so much to brag about when I go back. Having been with my mother for so many years, I have gradually come to understand. I don't need to understand what she's saying. I just need to know what mood she is in. So I held her face. Mother, just do what you want to do. Jing'an only wishes for your happiness and safety. At that moment, her eyes reddened. Tears fell as she pulled me into her arms. My Jing'an, the farthest you had ever been was the fields at the foot of the imperial city. Yet you have a heart that embraces the world. You were clearly easily frightened. Yet you always tried to stand in front of me, to shield me from the wind and rain, because Mother taught me well. She gradually broke into sobs, and finally couldn't form words, only calling my name over and over again. Although it's not like a farewell forever, I somehow had a premonition that she had completed her mission and was leaving me, but I was willing to listen to her and let her go pursue her freedom. This deep palace trapped her. Now that the palace gates are open, she can go see the vast world and experience more interesting things. Even difficult tasks like mathematics and land surveying come effortlessly to her. I believe nothing can hold her back. My mother is the smartest woman in this world. Finally, under the moonlight, I raised a cup of wine from afar, toasting respectfully in the direction my mother left. Being a female emperor, the road ahead is difficult and long. But Jing'an will always pray for you. The end.